So over the last 8 sessions, we've been studying the Vedanta Treatise, the Eternities, and we're slowly making our way through the book. Today's session is the last of this 8-session module, and we'll pick it up later in the year again and continue our progress. Today's topic is entitled The Good versus the Bad, and it covers the end portion of chapter 7, the light of wisdom, and touches on chapter 8, the culmination of life. In the last lecture, we spoke about that if we are ignorant, we gave the metaphor of a dark room, we stumble, we get hit, we get hurt. There is a life of stress, sorrow, suffering, trial and tribulation. The other side of it is, if you live a life of wisdom, of intellect, of thinking, of higher values, there is no strife or less strife. There is peace, harmony. One of the qualities that you can pick up between a person who has wisdom and a person who's ignorant, a person of wisdom doesn't complain. He understands it's about their ability to relate to the world. And if their relationship is correct, if their ability to meet the world is done correctly, there can be peace, harmony. But a person who is ignorant of this technique, who does not have access to this knowledge, where is the blame? Where do they place the responsibility?
On others.
Practice. Sorry, on? Yes, Usha?
On others.
On others.
On others, yeah.
On others. Everything outside themselves. Everything is wrong except themselves. The government is wrong. Partner is wrong. The children are wrong. Complaining, grumbling is a sign of the lack of wisdom. And we start today's topic by how there is this complaint that why is it that what we see in the world is that those who are good, straightforward, don't seem to be progressing as much as those who have power, who are wielding it selfishly, the bad. We see that those who take a particular path of ruthless ambition, greed, they seem to be more successful. They seem to be prospering and progressing in life far more than somebody who is perhaps learning scripture, leading a good, honest life. How is it? And there is this perennial complaint. There is so much corruption, so much of evil, so much of bad in the world. Well, there's an assumption there already. What? That person who's making the complaint is good. But okay, let's give it that. And here's the question. Why do the honest suffer? Why do the good suffer? And the theme of today is this debate, the perennial debate of good versus bad. John Milton writes the novel Paradise Lost. He talks about this conflict between the angels and the demons. In the Mahabharata, it's between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. At an individual level, it's about the positive and negative forces in our personality, the selfish and the unselfish. At a macro level, it is about those who mean to exploit from others versus those who mean to benefit others, the good versus the bad. Firstly, let's start with the premise for today. Do we find honest people suffering? Anyone? Do we find good people suffering?
Yeah.
We do. Well, let's explore that. Let's explore that a little bit further. Let's try and get to the heart of what does it mean to be good? What does it mean to be bad? And we will reveal in this session how what is happening in the world today is nothing but cause and effect. It's not about morality. It's simply to do with a human being's constitution. So have a look at this diagram. Okay, we're going to talk about two new concepts, aggressive and passive. So fortunately, because of our background, because of the previous sessions, we have the terminology to get deeper into the subject. Human beings can broadly be categorized into either the passive or the aggressive. Now, please, I know usually when we think about these two words, we think about the passive being those who are quiet, subdued, and aggressive being those who are outgoing, assertive. In today's class, they have a particular context. Passive means those who use their mind, not their conscious application. Aggressive are those who apply themselves. They use the intellect. Okay? So we've got two categories, those who use the intellect in life and those who function on the mind. And you can see there are subcategories. So under the passive, those who are mind-led, we have the passive bad. All right. So there are those who use the mind and fall under bad, those who use the mind and fall under good. And we'll go through each one because this dissection or analysis is how we answer the question, why do the honest suffer? The aggressive, those who use the intellect, also can be subcategorized under aggressive bad, aggressive good. Okay. Let's start with the passive. What does it mean to be passive in life? What does it mean to be mind-led in life? Anyone? Yes, Vasu.
So a passive person, one is would not use his intellect, would just rely purely on the mind to do his thinking for him.
So how would that person live? How would they make their choices? How would they get by?
Impulsive.
Impulsive, yes.
Irrational.
Irrational.
Reactive.
Reactive, yes. So this person is mind-led. So impulsive, emotional, reactive, yes. But because they don't apply their own original thinking, they would follow what others are doing, what their predecessors have done. They would be shaped by their environment, circumstance, and situation. They are a product of what's going on around them. Because there's no original thinking, there's no application. In that way, they're passive. They're shaped and molded by life, by circumstance. So depending on the upbringing they've had, they will behave accordingly. Now, the first category, passive bad. So it is those who are brought up with those values. Where, and now what does bad mean? Bad in this context is selfish. So looking at one's own gains, sometimes at the cost of others. So taking, breaking rules, breaking laws. Why? selfish. And they could be brought up like this. So it's not that they mean to be bad or they mean to harm others, but because they haven't applied themselves, this is the way they behave. Don't we find this in so many situations? Those who've gone through difficult experiences where they've had a life of difficulty, of challenge, perhaps neglect, or perhaps some kind of abuse. They in turn become abusers themselves. The cycle repeats itself. Those who have been brought up in an environment of addiction, alcohol, become users themselves. The environment shapes that individual. Not necessarily. If they apply the intellect, they can be whatever they'd like to be. But otherwise, the environment has such a strong impact. So if they're brought up in a negative environment, a bad environment, that is what is passed on. We see in novels like Oliver Twist, how they're taught to pickpocket, to steal. And it's almost generational. They pass on this art of pickpocketing, like how in India we have these great craftsmen, and it's passed on generation by generation, how they operate the looms, how they, and they specialize. Same thing with negative. How to scam, how to run a scam, how to graft, how to con. This is the passive bad.
Sudhakar.
Hi, I think Sudhakar has frozen. So we'll just wait a few minutes until I guess he gets back online.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's Sudhakar should be getting online just now. Recording.
Sorry about that. Is it clear? We have some stormy weather in Pune, hence the disruption. So, but is the video and the audio clear now?
Yes, very clear.
Okay, perfect. The passive good have had a good upbringing. They've been brought up in a positive family, a positive environment, their schooling, their traditions, positive. Perhaps guided by some religious influence. But this does not mean that they've chosen that. This does not mean that it's internalized. Why? Because it hasn't been understood. It hasn't been absorbed. So they are passively good. They follow or they give because their grandfather gave. They support charities because that's what the family has always done. This is the passive good. Now, we move to the next category, the aggressive. The aggressive are those who use the intellect in life. They plan, program. They find out how to use resources to get a job done. Now, depending on what is the intention, we would categorize the aggressive as bad or good. If one's intention is to plan, program, and then we would use words like manipulate, scheme, devise, if it is selfish. It is for oneself. It is how to use others to get what one wants, how to benefit at the cost of others. Or there's an indifference. It doesn't matter what the cost is to others. May not mean to harm others, but I really don't care what happens to others. That's the attitude of the aggressive bad. And this we see is rampant in the world. So if we were to do proportions, 90% of the world would fall under which category?
Aggressive bad.
I would say,
That's good.
well, anyone else differs?
I would say aggressive. I would say it's passive or aggressive. I would
No.
say 90% of the world is passive.
Yes,
That's what I would say.
yes. I see
I
one
would
Jimmy
also say-
says passive.
Passive, good,
Passive.
generally.
Generally. 90% of the world, I think we can agree, maybe even higher, is passive. I'm sure we find even in ourselves, we're not applying our intellect in so many facets, so many aspects of life. 90% of the world is passive. Now, of that 90%, maybe it's an equal split, maybe more bad, maybe more good, depends on the country, depends on the upbringing, but 90% are passive. What this means is that the 10% that's left, and it's probably of that 10%, 98% of that 10% is aggressive bad, using it for selfish means. And the reason why those who use the intellect choose to use it for selfish means is because of the immediate gain of selfishness. You take something, there is an immediate gain. You eat something, you enjoy something, there's an immediate pleasure. So most, if at all, they use the intellect, they use it selfishly. And the small, tiny minority is the aggressive good, who use the intellect for the benefit of others. Now, if we look at that 8%, that 8%, the aggressive means those who use the intellect, bad means for selfish ends, those aggressive bad have free range over the entire passive, the 90%. And they're able to overcome, they're able to overwhelm them simply by virtue of the intellect being stronger than the mind. They are able to manipulate rules and laws, find loopholes, find ways of taking advantage of the passive. And the passive, bereft of an intellect, are victims, helpless victims to those who are using the intellect. There's no equal competition. Yes, we're all human beings, but a person who's thinking versus a person who's not thinking, no competition. Completely exploited. Now, is this something to complain about? We could. But if you examine, isn't this the natural cycle? Isn't this the law of the world? The bigger fish eats the smaller fish. The fitter survive. The strong overwhelms the weak. This is natural. So those who are selfish and have the ability to exploit, why would they not? It's there, it's fair game. So imagine an extremely powerful predator and the prey that is not fast enough. So easy. Why would they resist that? To resist that. To not use that power when you know you could manipulate or exploit the weaker. To not use that power takes incredible character. In fact, Swamiji says in his book, The Holocaust of Attachment, he says, character is to have power and not use it. So the having the power itself is what many strive for. But the real character or the real power of power is to have it but not abuse it. We find in some countries, politicians, they have power where they could perhaps waive their fines, they could waive their parking tickets, they could waive queues. At the drop of a hat, they can put a beacon on top of their car and get through traffic. And you'll find some countries, the politicians don't do that. They'll stand in the queue. I remember on some airlines, in front of me is the Prime Minister of the country. I said, okay, where's the security? Of course, it differs, but on the situation and the context of each country. But the idea of it, do I need to use that power? There's a tale in the Indian scriptures. It's the tale of the Pativrata. And it talks about a beautiful woman who was married to a villager. And this woman was going to fetch water for the household. A prince who was riding came across the fields and saw the pond and this beautiful woman, and he approached her. And he said, where have you come from? You're a damsel from heaven. I would like to marry you. Straight, the prince proposed to her, to which she was polite. She said, sorry, I'm already married. To which the prince said, so what? I'm the prince of the state. I can amend it. I can annul your marriage and you marry me. Join me in the palace. You can be the queen, the future queen of the state. To which he said, no, thank you. The prince got off the horse and he went to approach the lady, not with the idea of hurting her, but of convincing her. And this lady started walking away. And the lady's walking away and the prince starts following. So the lady sees that he's following and she starts walking faster. He starts walking faster. She starts running. He starts running. She drops the container of water that she had come with and runs and runs and runs. He's chasing her. Again, not to hurt her. And after some time, from all the exertion, she falls and faints. Or faints and falls. She's on the ground. She's unconscious for a little while. The prince comes to revive her, puts a little bit of water, sprinkles some water to check if she's okay. And the story is, as soon as she comes to, she opens her eyes. She sees the prince and he's turned into dust. This is the story. And that's the beauty of our scriptures here in India is they don't give a moral at the end of it. You have to derive and interpret it yourself. Like in Aesop's fable, there's the story and it's clear what we're supposed to take away from it. Here, what is your takeaway? What is your interpretation? the interpretation, at least by Swamiji, is she was running not to save herself. She was running to save him. Because that was the power that she had. Pativrata. The power of a dedicated partner. This lady had the power to completely annihilate him. She was running so that he would not have to face them. There's an urban legend, and I'm not sure, I tried to verify it, of Muhammad Ali in a shopping market. He was in a supermarket and a shorter guy, he's rushing about and he bumps into Muhammad Ali. This short guy turns around to Muhammad Ali. He doesn't recognize who he is. Muhammad Ali, you're familiar with? Yeah, the world champion of boxing. The short guy turns around after brushing past Muhammad Ali and he says, "Hey, you, which way are you going?" To which, imagine, suppose Muhammad Ali just flexed his bicep. This guy would have fainted. Or suppose he would have said, "Do you know who I am? I am the world boxing champion." This guy would have had a heart attack. What is Muhammad Ali's reaction? He just shrugged. Sorry. To which the guy said, yeah, next time be more careful, and walks away. Character is to have power and not to use it. But unfortunately, where is the education to develop this character? We find people who fought for freedom, who sacrificed so much that when they get into a position of power, suddenly are susceptible to corruption. What changed? What happened? We can't ask that question because we're not presented with that level of power. So it's difficult for us to comment unless we're at that level. So even for us, if someone was to ask you, "Peter, would you change your mind? Would you do something for me if I was to offer you 1,000 euros? Say, no, of course not. 10,000 euros? I have my principles, okay? Don't try and change what I'm doing in life. 1 million euros? Look, there's a little bit of hesitation. 10 million? We start justifying. Oh, maybe I could use it for some good purpose. I can give half to this. It's a question of character. Where do you break? Where would you not give in? Character. And very few are trained for that. Even for fame, we find youngsters, sports people, athletes, actors, actresses, how people crave for that fame. But having got that fame and suddenly you're in the spotlight, how do you use it? How do you deal with it? Do you have the character to manage it? The aggressive good is that rare person who decides to use the intellect to outmaneuver, outsmart the aggressive bad components in society and benefit one and all. So it doesn't just look into the interests of himself, it's himself, but himself as part of a community, as part of a nation, as part of a region. This is an aggressive good. Very rare, but that one aggressively good person can change a generation. And that's how easy it is to make a difference. But to find and build and become that aggressively good person is decades, perhaps lifetimes of effort, refinement of character. Now, how is it that the aggressively good are able to defeat the aggressively bad? Both are using the intellect, all right? So both are using reason, logic, analysis. The aggressively bad is using it to see how they can extract from the system, find the loophole, exploit others. The aggressively good understand the nature of the aggressively bad, understand the negative components in society, are able to navigate and get the job done for the benefit of others. How is it? Both are using the intellect. What edge does the aggressively good have over the aggressively bad?
The universe is usually with them.
The universe is with them. Great. That takes a leap of faith, that one, that explanation, but it's true.
They have less agitations.
Excellent. Less agitations. Yes. What else? But
Is it because they are unselfish to a point of selfless?
they're unselfish. So Usha, so we didn't actually conclude that point. So what if they have less agitations?
It
So they
gives
can
them
think.
more power.
More power, okay.
They can think much more precisely and have a clear mind.
That's it. So if we're talking about the quality of thinking, all right, so the aggressively bad take advantage over both the passively good and bad because they're thinking, the passive are not thinking. So it's easy to exploit them. Now, how does the aggressive good person's thinking overcome the aggressively bad's thinking? And the difference is this, it's in the quality. So because the aggressively bad person is selfish, they're highly agitated. They have many, many desires. Not just that, because of their selfish ways, there is fear. Because what they've extracted and what they've done to others, they're fearful of what others are going to do to them. They live in fear. What a life. People who've gone through this type of living, you will find surrounded by bodyguards. They cannot trust another person. They're fearful of their own family members. Everyone is a potential conspiracy theorist, a person who could be involved in a plot to overthrow them. I'm not talking just about politicians. I'm talking about in business families, in even smaller groups. It could be the captain of a team who's selfish, would feel every other person a competitor. Now, because of that agitation, they're not able to think as clear as a person who's aggressively good, who's peaceful. Their thinking is not compromised by agitation. So let's analyze that, because we take it for granted. When we are stressed, when we are agitated, the quality of our thinking reduces. If I was to ask you to walk across a plank that's on the ground, just walk across it. It's about 2 feet wide. No problem, Sudhakar. Of course, walk across the plank. Now, suppose that same plank, 2 feet wide, is suspended between the Twin Towers. No wind. There's no wind, okay? It's a windless day. And I say, Leila, take a walk. We won't be able to do it. But it's certified by the engineers, perfectly safe. We're not able to do it. Why? Agitation. The same thing which you would just walk across normally. Now, each step you're thinking about. Oh, maybe there is a breeze. You start swaying. So, oh, I always knew my right foot was bigger than my left foot. This agitation. So one, the aggressive good can overcome the aggressive bad because they're peaceful, less agitated. They're able to think sharper, clearer. The second is, because their cause is for something bigger than themselves, they get the support of the group that they're working for. So whereas the aggressive bad is me versus the world, everyone is a competitor, everyone is friction, resistance, conflict. The aggressive good gets the support of the group that he or she identifies with. There's power. And the last point, which Nandini touched on, is that when you are unselfish, you are aligning yourself towards your real self, the Atman, Brahman, God within. Your conscience and your actions and your thinking are aligned. You get the support of divinity, as it were, or of your conscience. But when you are going against your conscience, when you are moving away from the self, when you're moving away from self-realization, becoming more egoistic, materialistic, sensual, selfish, the effect is there is a conflict in your conscience. There is no alignment, and that lack of alignment causes the downfall of the aggressively bad. Now, in these epics, in the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, they give beautiful examples of all four types of categories. So in the Mahabharata, it talks about the passively good. That was the Pandava family. It was a group of brothers. They were righteous, but they got taken advantage of by their evil cousins, the Duryodhana and the Kauravas. Okay, some of you may be familiar with the story, but it was these two families, and the wicked or the selfish, they played a game where they gambled each other's kingdoms. And it was supposed to be a competition, but they messed with the dice. They cheated. Who? The Kauravas. And they represent the aggressively bad. They cheated. They took the kingdom. One stage, they took the wife of the Pandavas as well. They took everything. And these passive good guys, you know, if Swamiji was talking to you, these idiots, some people get offended. How can you call the Pandavas idiots? That's what they were. There was no thinking at all. They lost the entire kingdom and their citizens, and they were banished for 13 plus years. Banished means they had to live outside of the palace, nothing, and incognito for 1 year. These were the conditions. So what it shows, aggressively bad overcomes, defeats the passively good. And it gives a suggestion of what does society do then? Because we do have aggressive bad elements in society. The passive good and bad need to turn to the aggressively good for guidance. And this is what the Pandavas did. So they turned to Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna, in this context, represents a person with a very sharp intellect, an aggressively good person. And if you follow the story, you will find Lord Krishna doing all sorts of seemingly unethical things. Because if somebody is cheating in a game, how do you win? You have to outsmart. You say, you bring your own dice. You have to be that much smarter than the person who has got a backup plan to defeat you. You've got to know what their plan is and how to circumvent it. And that circumventing may not always be the straightforward, honest way. But what makes you honest is the intention, is the good you mean to do. It's not your first resort, it's your last resort. There's a saying, you have to fight adharma, not always with dharma, with adharma. If a person steals from you, so suppose somebody steals your wallet, a friend takes your wallet, goes, and one day you're visiting their home and you see your wallet on the counter. You know that's your wallet. Now, are you going to have a conversation? Say, hey, that's my wallet. How did it get here? Did you take it? Or perhaps you might think it more sensible, just take the wallet back. But hey, you're stealing. Oh, you're not stealing in that context. So there are all these interesting scenarios where Krishna actually tells the Pandavas, this is what you need to do. They are breaking the rules. You've got to do this to defeat them. And because of this, there is so much criticism about it. Because people don't understand the nuances, the difficulty of being good. There's a book by that title. And it conveys the challenge of outsmarting the bad and what is needed to get the desired result. In the Ramayana, another interesting anecdote there. Rama is the protagonist. He's the hero. He's the aggressive good element. The passive good fellow is the monkey king. Yes, there's a kingdom of monkeys, and the king of the monkeys, his name was Sugriva. But Sugriva, he was running the kingdom. His brother Vali, he usurps the kingdom and takes his wife. He takes the kingdom and the guy's wife. Heartless fellow. No, he could have left it at just the kingdom. Takes the wife also. And Sugriva goes to Rama complaining because Vali has this talent where whenever he sees his opponent, he takes half the opponent's strength. All this has a symbolism. Now, what do? So Rama says, don't worry, I'll take care of it. Call Vali out for a fight. Say, one-on-one fight. And whilst you are fighting, I will hide behind a tree and I will shoot Vali. And you'll get your kingdom and your wife back. So Sugriva goes and he says, hey, Vali, I want to challenge you. Vali says, oh, he tells his new wife, look, this will only take a few minutes. I'll come back, keep the tea warm. He comes out and they start fighting. And Sugriva is waiting for his help, Rama, Lord Rama, to shoot Vali. And they're fighting. Sugriva is getting beaten up, black and blue. Bones are broken. No arrow, no shooting. Vali goes back to have his tea. Sugriva comes crawling. He looks up at Lord Rama and he says, hey, what's the big idea? You were supposed to finish off my brother. To which Lord Rama says, you know, both of you are monkeys. I couldn't tell the difference. I didn't want to take a chance and shoot you. So round two, he says, go back, challenge him. But this time you wear a red mala, a garland. So I know this one is you, I'll shoot the other guy. So anyway, the challenge happens. And this time, Lord Rama shoots from behind the tree, shoots Vali. And the story is, Vali is there, he's dying. He says, Lord Rama, you are a hero. Why are you shooting from behind a tree? To which Rama says, if I was to confront you, you would take away half my strength. I couldn't do that. I had to shoot from behind the tree. There's another meaning, but it's not our topic today. But Vali represents the sense objects, sensuality. And when the sense objects are in front of us, they're so attractive, so tempting, they take away half our restraint, half our willpower, half our intellect. We weakened, half our strength is gone. So what is the best way to tackle essential desire? You've got to do it outside of the environment. To try and give up drinking in the pub is very difficult. You've got to educate yourself outside of the pub. So this is the symbolism. So many layers and levels of beautiful interpretation and understanding. But this is it, the difficulty of being good. The next question is, why would the good choose good? And this is where having philosophy is important, because it gives us the why in what we do. And that why is important. And often we don't spend enough time, or we don't take enough time getting the why right. Why am I doing what I'm doing? It's not so much the what or the who that matters, but the why, the how. The bad haven't thought about it. So their intellect has not been developed, or they don't have access to the knowledge, to the wisdom to understand selfishness, material and sensual aggrandizement and enjoyment is not going to give me lasting pleasure and happiness. So their analysis is limited. They haven't thought so far. So they use their analysis just to get more wealth, more fame, more power. Because perhaps we have a stronger intellect and we've been exposed to this higher knowledge, we know that happiness is not there. The happiness of the aggressively bad is short-lived. It ends up in depression, loneliness. Not worth it. Is there any, think of the aggressively bad characters in history. Is there any story that ends well? Think of aggressively bad people. So we only see one side, the material side, and we think, oh, it's so wealthy, what glamorous lives, they move around in private jets, they have all the comforts. What is the relationship with their family, with their partner, with their business partners, with their countrymen, countrywomen? You find that person alone. Don't know how to entertain themselves, don't know what to do with the wealth. Doesn't end well. Jim Carrey says, and I'll put it up on the screen for you. He says, I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of, so they can see it's not the answer. This is what we want to convey to the aggressively bad. We want all of them to do a course in Vedanta and say, what you're looking for, all the things that you're doing, you're not going to get the happiness that you want. Selfishness is not the answer. There is a higher, better quality life and happiness that awaits you. This is not the means. But because of the instant pleasure, the quick gain, the increase in the bank balance, the sudden car the sudden new home, we fall a prey to it. But if you don't know anything else, if you don't know the joy of service, if you don't know the reason why unselfishness is important for yourself, for your state of mind, for your happiness, what else would you do? Have you heard of the novel Frankenstein?
Yes.
Of the monster? Yeah. Okay. The author says, is the monster evil? Because the monster goes and tries to hunt its creator. Is the monster evil? And if you go through the book, it's extremely well written because you end up thinking, who's evil? Was it the creator or the monster? And perhaps the monster was just looking for acknowledgement, affection. But because denied of all that, expresses it in frustration, revenge. And Mary Shelley says this, and it gives us a different way of looking at bad, because the word bad actually may agitate you. You feel a sense of injustice, iniquity, but it agitates you. And perhaps maybe we don't call it bad, we don't call it evil, or we give it a different perspective that instead of causing us angst, it causes us sympathy, compassion. So there's a quote by Mary Shelley that says, no man chooses evil because it is evil. So this is the way to look at it. No person means to do evil. He only mistakes it for happiness, the good he seeks. Each one of us is looking for pleasure, for happiness. And unfortunately, sometimes we're misguided or it's not well thought out. If anyone is sincere and thoughtful about looking for happiness, they will end up in the same places. Why? Cause and effect. Selfishness, sensuality, wealth, external pleasures can only give you limited pleasure. The happiness that we seek is somewhere else. It's in moving towards self-realization. It's in finding that peace within. It's in becoming more and more unselfish. And those who've tasted it, so those who are doing service, you find, ask them about their backgrounds. It's not that they come necessarily from poor backgrounds. They may have been exposed to a level of wealth and found it wanting. So they don't choose it. So it's not a great sacrifice that they're doing. I'm leaving all my wealth and I'm going to do service for the nation. I'm leaving business and I'm going to help people. It's not a sacrifice. It's just that they have a stronger intellect where they've understood the limitation of what the world offers, and that service can provide more peace, pleasure, satisfaction, better sleep. Oliver Goldsmith. These are lines to imbibe into your system because it conveys the idea of the satisfaction of service in such a powerful way. And it talks about this village preacher where he had a mansion, but he only spent and used 40 pounds a year. And he didn't change his fashions. He didn't have new clothes. And it's not that he didn't know what the fashions were. It's not that he wasn't a fashionable man, but he had other interests. And the poem says, for other aims, his heart had learned to prize, more skilled to raise the wretched than to rise. He said to help is more fulfilling than for me, one person to rise. This is it. The satisfaction of service. Albert Einstein, he puts it differently. Happiness, if you want happiness, don't tie it to things and people. Tie it to a goal, a higher ideal, a cause. What that does is it takes the focus off your ego, off your selfishness. This is the idea. The more unselfish we become closer and closer to the self within. The ego gets diluted and more diluted. To the extent the ego is dissolved and the self within is unveiled, to that extent you experience peace, happiness, bliss. So let's recap. Why do the honest suffer? The honest are the passively good, but they're not the only ones who suffer. The passively good and the passively bad suffer at the hands of the aggressively bad. Why? Because they operate on the mind, the aggressively bad operates on the intellect. Because of that extra power and that strength, the aggressively bad exploit, take advantage of the passive for their selfish ends and means. For our society, what is the need of the hour? The need of the hour is to get society through education to develop the intellect. Not the education that we've all gone through schools and universities. The maximum that that education will produce is intelligence. You're either still passive, or if at all, there is a person that uses that intelligence, that information, they use it to find how to crook the system. If we want to make this complete, this refined citizen, this refined human being, number one, we've got to get ourselves first and then others to develop the intellect. Question, think, don't accept things blindly just because it's been followed generation after generation by predecessors, fathers and grandfathers, mothers and grandmothers. Question, think, then accept it. We spoke about how to gain wisdom in the last session. Challenge not in a way to contradict, but to understand, clarify, refine. In the interim, as we're building this intellect, the passive have got to take refuge and choose the aggressive good. Find aggressively good leadership. Now, the trouble is when you don't have an intellect, you don't know what is good, what is bad. And that's where society is getting into trouble. So even when people do start searching, they end up in a place where, again, they get exploited. So they're looking to develop their personality, they're looking to develop their intellect, but their choice of place or person exploits them further. On the BBC this week, there was a case of a person who signed up for coaching. And this coaching turned out to be once in a while, and then it became hours on the phone. And by the end of it, the person had sold their house, had separated with their partner, had gotten into anxiety and depression, not realizing what is the cause of it. So this is the challenge. Where is the intellect to identify what is good for me? If we do find this aggressively good person, it may not be ourselves, it may be somebody, some person that we've identified, support them, take their guidance, learn from them. And for the aggressively bad, we don't give up on them. It's not a fight against the aggressively bad. The aggressively bad also need the education, the higher values. Selfishness will only get you so far. So happy. If you want to be better, live better, be happier, peaceful, unselfishness, service is the way. So they also need the education. This subject, Vedanta, does both. Share it. Wait, hold on. First, we imbibe it. Remember? We become it. We try and be that aggressively good component. Our example hopefully will attract others. We can help others. But to the extent we have some influence in our circles, share the wisdom, share the knowledge, pass it on. Get others to question, start thinking, developing their intellect. And for those who are using it negatively, give them the higher values. So Vedanta gives both. It helps you develop your intellect, also gives you the higher values to take your intellect from aggressive bad to aggressive good. So let's not wait for a prophet to come and grace us to change the world. Let us try and be aggressively good. And instead of complaining and grumbling about what's happening in society, let us try and be that aggressively good person that can change our environment, our society, our world for the better. Thank you, everyone. That concludes our module. Before we part, just a few announcements. So just a few ways, powerful ways that you could share the subject. We do have 2 events coming up in the next few months. So these are at the Vedanta Academy, and it's a great setting to get some momentum into building the intellect. So the first one is our biannual youth camp. It's called Life Decoded. All right, so it's a 5-day retreat. It's for youths between the ages of 10 and 24 years old. It's 5 days, it's residential. There will be lectures, there will be group discussions, there will be a movie with these higher values, there will be lots of sports. So for those of you whose youth or nephews, nieces, children, grandchildren can make it on these dates, they're most welcome to attend. And the next event is for adults. So this is the Vedanta Academy experience. So for those of you who are already exposed to the subject, I would recommend this. Now this is also biannual. So it's happening from the 2nd to the 7th of July. Okay, so it's just the beginning of the rainy season in India. It's beautiful. Actually, it looks very much like this picture. Everything is lush and green and wonderful student atmosphere. So we'll be having or hosting class members from around the world for those 6 days. So consider coming and visiting the academy. It's about 100 kilometers outside Mumbai. Or if you're in India, the closer airport is Pune. And the other time that we host this event is in mid-January. So I know quite a few, or most of you, are from different parts of the world. So see which works for you. And come and experience it. Get a taste of early mornings, early nights, and the author of the book is there. Come and interact with them. And of course, I'll be there too. So next week, we won't have a lecture, it'll be a Q&A. So if you have questions that have come up from the last few lectures or from your reading, you're most welcome to bring it up. The entire hour will be dedicated for Q&A. To ensure your question gets covered, please WhatsApp me your question. And as the questions come in or are submitted, I'll take it up in that order. Any questions before we part on the events or on our study?
There are a couple, Sudhakar, but I think it's best we do them next Sunday for this session for the Q&A.
Okay. And of course, for so many of you, I think about a few of you are on e-learning, but the best way of taking the subject forward is finding out how to do it in a structured way. And for that, the e-learning course, have a look. Okay. We have a new site. So I'm just going to request Avanya if she can put it in the chat. It's online.vedantaworld.org. So have a look. There are shorter courses, so you can get a taste of it. You can try it out. But the idea is structured and consistent learning. That's the idea. So every day we're getting a dose of this wisdom, of this knowledge. Hope to see you in person, everyone. The link is there in the chat.
There you go. Thank you, Sudhakar.
Thank you.